So in today's video, we're going to learn how to make this smart oven cabinet. So this is frameless construction, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a face frame cabinet and we're going to drop it in here as a subassembly and then give it some intelligence so it will size itself according to this specific opening in this cabinet. And then we're also going to give it a fixed shelf that will move along with that bottom rail. So let's go ahead and let's get started. So we're going to go into an empty room here. And first thing we need to do is make that face frame cabinet. So some of you may or may not know how to do that. So I'm going to take you through the steps real quickly. So we're just going to take any regular upper cabinet and throw it on the wall. It does not have to be an upper. You could do this with a base as well. I'm just in the habit of using upper cabinets for my appliance frame assemblies. So obviously, first problem here is this is frameless construction, and we want this to be face frame. So we're going to fix that. First thing I want to do, though, is I want to get rid of these finished ends. We don't need them. This is just going to be a face frame. So let's just get rid of those right now. So we're going to right click, finished ends, none, gets rid of those. Now let's double click on this cabinet, and that will take it into the cabinet editor. So first things first, let's go ahead and change the construction method of this cabinet. So we're going to go to Properties, Construction, and then right now you can see it's frameless, and we're going to change it to face frame. So obviously your construction methods, the names are going to look a little different than mine. Just pick any one of your face frame construction methods. So I'm going to click OK, and great. Now it's going to change it to face frame construction. Now let's go ahead and get rid of the doors and the adjustable shelves and all that sort of stuff. We don't need it. So when I'm on section face here, I can click delete, and that's going to erase all the face and interior parts, meaning all the doors and adjustable shelves. It's not going to get rid of the face frame parts, just everything else. So we'll click OK. You can see, great. Now we have a face frame, but we still have this box that we want to get rid of. So that's pretty easy to do. We can go to Modifications, Hide Parts, and then we're just going to click on hide all parts at first. So just click that, and that will select everything in there. So right now it's going to hide everything. But let's uncheck face frame parts. So again, anything that's checked is going to get hidden. Anything that is unchecked is not. So we're going to hide everything except for the face frame parts. And we'll double check it. Yep, great. Now we got what we need. So let's go back into the room, and let's go ahead and change the depth of this cabinet to 3/4 of an inch deep. And then now we're going to save this cabinet to our objects library so we can use it later to bring in to the tall cabinet so we can make our oven cabinet. First thing I need to do, again, this is a step you are not going to have to do. This is a custom UCS I have on my system, is I need to override my Y position and DY for this cabinet. Otherwise, when I bring it back into the room, it's going to do it at a weird height that I don't want it to do. So I took care of that. So now let's go ahead and save this. So I'm going to right click, save, and then I'm going to go save as. That's kind of a key step here. And then we're going to call this appliance frame. So appliance frame. And I'm going to go ahead and, for me, I'm going to preserve the attributes just because there's some kind of custom stuff going on in this thing. But you don't have to do that. You don't have to preserve any of this if you don't want to. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this in my custom parts catalog. You can put it in any catalog you want to. Don't worry, we're going to delete this thing later because you don't need it after you create it and then bring it into the tall cabinet. So just put it wherever you can remember it. I'm going to click OK. Now I'm going to delete this one, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to find that one and just bring it in the room. Just make sure it works. Yep, looks good. Okay, so let's delete it and get rid of it. Now let's go ahead and let's get a tall cabinet in this room. So I'm just going to bring in any generic tall cabinet. And then now you can see we need to edit this thing to create an opening. So we're going to put a drawer here at the bottom. We're going to create an opening in the middle, a pair of doors at the top. So let's go ahead and take this into the cabinet editor to accomplish that. So double click, and that'll get us into the cabinet editor. We're going to go section, and the default when you click section will be section face, and that's where we want to be. So we're going to click on this pair of doors. We're just going to add a horizontal split. That's going to convert this bottom one into a drawer, which is great, but let's go ahead and make it a reasonable height drawer. We'll set it at 12. And for now, we're going to lock that height so things don't move on us as we're creating this. And then this middle section, we're going to turn that into an open section. So just change that to open. Great. And for now, let's just go ahead and make that 48 inches tall. And let's get rid of these adjustable shelves in there that we don't need. So we're just going to click on those and delete, and delete, and delete. And then we know later on we're going to want a drawer stretcher right here. And then we're going to want a fixed shelf above that, which is in line with our bottom rail. So let's just go ahead and add both of those while we're in here. So we're going to go horizontal split. We're going to put it right on that line. And then we're going to change it to a drawer stretcher. Then click anywhere above that. And we're going to do another horizontal split. And we're going to turn that into a fixed shelf. And don't worry about the location of that fixed shelf yet, because we're going to give it some intelligence a little bit later. So let's go ahead and look at this thing in 3D. Yep, looks good. It's kind of what we want. So now we need to get that face frame cabinet into this cabinet. So let's go into the cabinet editor. So now we're going to go into any of the ortho views. The face view is usually the easiest. If I click on that, that's going to give me these menu options right here. One of them is objects. So I'm going to click on objects. Then I'm going to navigate to that library where I saved that face frame. And for me, I put it in my custom parts, and it's this appliance frame. And I'm just going to bring it in here and just drop it anywhere. Don't try to line it up with anything yet. Just get it in the cabinet, because we're going to give it some formulas on where to go. So I'm going to take this kind of one step at a time, and we're going to build these formulas as we go so you can kind of see how it all works. So we know that we want this frame to fill this opening right here. We know we want it to be the height of this opening, the width of this opening, and it's going to sit on the face of this cabinet. So first things first, let's take care of the left-right position, or the X position of this, because you can see right now the X position is negative 44.753, which is probably not what we want. But we need to figure out what is the appropriate X position, and we don't want to just put in a fixed number. We want this to be a formula so this cabinet is dynamic. So we know that we have some face openings here. So why don't we reference this cabinet to this face opening? So wherever this opening is, this cabinet is going to be in that same spot. And we can figure out what opening that is by going into the object tree. As you get more familiar with cabinet vision, you'll just know which opening it is. But you can always find the information just by going into the object tree. So let's click on that. And then we're going to expand this. And we're going to go to the face. And then you can see we have all these face openings. So we need to figure out which one is the one that we want to put our appliance frame in. So the easiest thing to do is we kind of know where this is. We know this drawer is 12 inches tall. So that means this face opening, its Y position should be 12. We know we already fixed the height of this at 48. So we're looking for a face opening that has a Y position of 12 and a DY of 48. So let's just start at the first one. Y position of 0, DY of 91.5. So that's this entire thing. So definitely not the one we want. Let's click on the next one. Y position of 0, DY of 60. Again, not the one I want. Let's click on the next one. Y position of 12 and 3/16 and DY of 48. There we go. That's the one that we want. So that one is face opening at 3. So it's critical that we remember that because we have 3 face openings. And so we have just face opening 1, and with the first one it's not going to have an at symbol in 1. It's just going to be cab.face.fo. But then the second one will be at 2 followed by at 3. We want the at 3. And we said we were going to take care of the X position of this first. So if we click, we're in face opening number 3. Here's the X position of that one. So this is the X position that we want for our face frame. Temporarily. I'm going to show you some other things in a second here, but this is at least going to get us started. So we can actually just highlight all this, right click, and copy. And then if we look further down the object tree, we can actually see our appliance frame cabinet is right here. So we don't have to go back out and click on this face frame and do all that sort of stuff. We can add this formula right here. So I'm just going to click on this cabinet, and then I'm going to scroll down to the X position. You can see right now it's negative 44.753. Let's just double click on that, and we're going to select equation, and then we're going to right click and paste that formula that we just copied into the then line. So basically what this is saying is if 1, and 1 just means true. And so true is always going to evaluate as true. So if you put 1 in here, it's basically saying if true, which true is always true, then this is how you're going to evaluate it, or this is what the X position is going to be. We can test this, and we see, it's saying, yeah, 1 is true, meaning true is true, but the equation is returning a syntax error. Here's the biggest mistake people make. The formula we copied directly from the parent cabinet, but we're assigning it to the child or to the subassembly. So the X position of the subassembly needs to refer back to the parent cabinet. So it's not cab.face.fo at 3.x. It's previous cab.face.fo at 3.x. And so how you tell it to refer to the previous cabinet is we're just telling it to go up 1 level in the cabinet tree, which is a semicolon. So there we go. Now if we hit test, and voila. Yep, because the X position of this face opening is 0. So this is an important step, and this is the one that people always miss, and it makes it very, very hard to get these formulas to work right for subassemblies. You just got to remember that if you're basing it off of some parameter on the parent cabinet, you have to say previous cab dot whatever it is, and you do that with a semicolon. So now we're going to click OK. We're going to go out of this just for a second, just so we can see that our appliance frame is going to move. And yep, it moved exactly where we wanted it to. So now let's just go back into the object tree, and we're going to take care of the Y position. We're going to take care of the DX, which is the width. We're going to take care of the DY, which is the height. And we're going to take care of the Z position, which is where it's placed in and out. So we'll do those kind of quickly. So if we click back on our appliance frame, and let's go back to the X position. And this is a pretty good formula to use. So we're just going to copy it because we're going to use parts of it in a bunch more places. So we're just going to click copy, cancel. And so we took care of the X position. Now let's do the Y. So here's the Y, and we're just going to double click on that equation. And let's go ahead and paste the equation that we used for the X initially. Obviously, this is not going to work for where we want the Y to be, but I'm going to show you a little trick here. So we're just going to Control V, and instead of X, we're just going to change that to Y. Test. Yep, great, perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. Now we're going to take care of the DX, which is the width, and equation, Control V, and change instead of X, DX. Test. Yep, looks good. And dy equation, Control V, change the X to DY. And I always test them, especially when you're learning, just to make sure it returns the value that you want and you didn't type something incorrectly. So now we'll click OK. And now we can see that we have the face frame sized correctly. It's in the correct X and Y position, but it's back here at the back of the cabinet. So we need to get its Z position fixed. So I'm just going to click on that subassembly, and then we're going to look for the in out or Z position here. And before we were putting all these formulas directly into the cabinet through the object tree. You can do the same thing by clicking here. And when I click in this box, it's going to bring this up right here, which gives us the same menu that we were using in the object tree. So we're just going to click equation, and we're going to say previous cab.dz and test. So our parent cabinet is 25 inches deep. And so we want this face frame to be placed on the face of that cabinet. So i.e. 25 inches out from the back of the cabinet, which is exactly what we want. So click OK. Now take a look at this in 3D. And cool. Now we're getting there. We have it sized somewhat correctly. Um, uh, and I'll show you why I say somewhat. So again, with frameless cabinets, reveals become a big deal. So you can see we got a couple problems here. Our face frame is all the way at the edge of our cabinet. So right now it's touching our applied finished end. And our reveal between the face frame and this door is only a 1/16 of an inch. And we can grab our measuring tool and we can verify that. So if we look over to the vertical, yep, I got a 1/16. Obviously, depending on what your reveals are for your specific shop, we probably want these to be somewhere around 1/8 of an inch each. So we got to fix that. But I'm going to show you a little trick here. I like to make sizing these face frames as easy as possible because nothing gets mixed up more than appliance frames. I can't tell you how many appliance frames I've had to remake and I've seen had to be remake because people mess them up all the time. So I want to make this simple. I want to make the user be able to click on this section and tell that frame to be whatever height it needs to be. So I want to be able to click here, and if I want my frame to be 42 inches tall, if I click 42 and type it in, I want that frame to be 42. I don't want to have to do any math knowing, oh, well, actually, if I type 42 here, that's going to give me a face frame that's 41 and 15/16 or whatever it is. Whatever I type here, that's what I want my frame to be. So the problem right now is we only have a 1/16 of an inch between our doors and this frame. So that one's actually pretty easy to solve. And we're going to go Properties, Reveals, and we're just going to change. Right now our horizontal reveal is 1/8 of an inch. We're just going to change that to 3/16. And voila. Now we're actually going to get 1/8 of an inch gap from these doors to the face frame and from this drawer front to the face frame. Perfect. So we kind of took care of those, and now I can click here and you can see it's showing 42. And if I go into face here and I find that face frame and I click on the face frame and I look at its length, yep, 42. Perfect. Now we just got to deal with the width of this. And this is where we want to write some formulas. So there's a couple things that we can do to get this to automatically size itself. So we have the reveals, which many of you know about, REV left or REVL and REVR, which is reveal left and reveal right. And we could use those. The problem is those parameters don't exist unless you've changed the reveal to something. So when you brought it in the room, you decided you wanted something different than the cabinet normally has. So you actually went into properties, clicked on reveals, and changed it. So that's probably not a great one to use initially. But we do have two other parameters that we can use. And those parameters will look at what type of ends the cabinet has and or what the cabinet is next to. So for me, I know that if the cabinet has an applied finished end, I want this reveal right here to be 1/8 of an inch. And I know that if the cabinet has an unfinished end, I want it to be 1/16 of an inch. Or if this cabinet is next to another tall cabinet, I probably want this reveal to be 1/16 of an inch. So we're going to use a combination of reveal left, reveal right, and then those two other parameters that I told you about. And we're going to start with the left side of the cabinet to make it easy. But the first parameter, we'll go here to our system parameters. It's going to be LADJ. And what this does is it returns the object or condition to the left of this cabinet. So you can see we have all these options. So if nothing is to the left of this cabinet, then I probably want my reveal to be, for me, I want it to be 1/8 of an inch. If there's a wall there, it means I'm probably going to have a wall filler, which again, I'm going to want 1/8 of an inch. If there's an assembly next to it, I probably want it to be 1/16 of an inch. In this case, the appliance doesn't really matter because I'm not going to have an appliance that's also the same height as this cabinet. So I'm not super worried about it. If there's another tall cabinet next to this, then I probably do want it to be 1/16. And you can kind of go down these and figure out what you want those values to be. The other parameter is LEND. So we're going to scroll down here, and here it is, LEND. And this returns the left end type of the cabinet. So we have finished end, unfinished end, extended, returned, blah, blah, blah. The ones that we use most often is going to be unfinished end and applied finished end or applied door finished end. You might use some of these others a lot, and so this is where you kind of got to decide what formulas you want to use. But I know for me, if the end type on this cabinet is going to be unfinished, I want my reveal to be 1/16. If the end type is an applied door or an applied finished end, I want it to be 1/8. So we know for LEND, if it equals 5 or 6, which means an applied door or an applied finished end, then I want my reveal to be 1/8. Otherwise, if it's an unfinished end, I want it to be 1/16. So let's go ahead and figure out how these formulas are going to work and what this is going to look like. So let's go back into Cabinet Vision here. And we can go back into the object tree, and we're going to expand this, and we're going to click on this appliance frame, and we're going to add 2 parameters to this appliance frame. And again, you can name the parameters anything that you want. A lot of people get in the habit of using certain names when they're trying to accomplish certain things. So for this example, I know that I'm dealing with the reveals for the left and right. So I know that the system parameters for that are REVL and REVR. So I'm just going to say my REVL and REVR. Just make it easy on myself so I remember what I was trying to do here. So I'm going to go add, and this is going to be a measurement, and the style is going to be standard. These are your defaults. So whenever you click on add a parameter, it's automatically going to default to these 2 things. And this parameter is just going to be my underscore REVL. We're going to start with the left side. And we're going to write a series of equations for these. So we're going to click on equation. And then this time we're going to use both the if and the then, because we're going to have multiple equations. So first thing we want to check for is, hey, did the previous cabinet, did I change the reveal on that from the original, that it was? Basically, did I click on that and did I go to reveals and did I change it? Because if I did, then that reveal parameter will exist. If I didn't, it won't exist. So we're just going to check and see if that parameter exists. So if previous cab dot revel is not not equal to null. Basically what this means is if the previous cab, meaning the parent cabinet, which is that tall cabinet, if the REVL parameter is not equal to null, and null just means it's not there. So this is kind of like a double negative. I'm saying if it doesn't not exist. So I'm just checking here to see if it exists. And if that parameter exists, then I want my REVL to equal that. Otherwise, I want it to do something else. So I'm saying if previous cab.revl does not equal to null, meaning that REVL actually exists, then I want my reveal to match that. So I'm going to say then um, previous cab.revl, and we'll go ahead and test it, and it shouldn't exist. It should return syntax because the parent cabinet doesn't actually have that parameter yet. And you can see it's saying false because the REVL parameter doesn't exist, and then it's returning a syntax. So that's what we want. We're just trying to check to see if it's there. It's not there. These formulas will evaluate in order until it gets to one that's true. So just keep in mind, sometimes you want to order these in a specific order. So in this case, first thing we want to do is we want to check to see if there is a reveal parameter on the parent cabinet. If there is, that's what we want our reveal to be. Otherwise, we want it to be something else. So we got that out of the way. Now let's click add. We're going to add another one, and we want to move it down because we want it to evaluate this one second. We always want to check the parent cab reveal first. So then the second thing, we're going to say, okay, if um, previous cab lend is equal to 2, which means it's an unfinished end. So if the previous cab has an unfinished end, then we want our reveal to be a 16th. And great, that's probably a good formula to leave the way it is. And then now we'll do one more, and we're going to move that down, and we're going to say if previous cab dot ladj is equal to so the main ones that we're looking for the LADJ is if there's a cabinet next to us or if there's a tall cabinet next to us. And so those values were 2 or 4. So if previous cab.ledj is equal to 2, or, and for or you just use the pipe symbol, previous cab, and capital, uppercase, or lowercase doesn't really matter. I usually just try to keep it consistent. LADJ is equal to 4, which would be a tall cabinet. So if either of these things is true, if it's next to a cabinet or it's next to a tall cabinet, then I also want it to be a 16th. Well, why don't I just go ahead and combine this to the other one? So let's just go ahead and copy this. Copy. We'll click on this one, or, and then paste. So now we're saying, okay, if what's next to this cabinet, or basically if this cabinet has an unfinished end, or if it has another cabinet next to it, or if it has another tall cabinet next to it, then we want that reveal to be a 16th. Cool. That's what we want. So now, what are the conditions where we want it to be an eighth of an inch? Well, that's really if it has an applied door or an applied finished end. And so that's going to be, just going to go ahead and get back to here. If previous cab.lend is equal to 5, or previous cab.lend is equal to 6. So if it has an applied door or an applied finished end, then we want it to be an eighth of an inch, 0.125. So let's go ahead and evaluate these things in order. So we know right now that cabinet has an applied door on both sides. So we're going to check this first formula, and it's going to evaluate to false. Then we're going to check the second formula. So the second formula is saying, hey, does this have an unfinished end, or is it next to another cabinet? That should also evaluate to false, which it does. Then the last one is saying, hey, does the previous cabinet have applied ends? And this should evaluate to true, which it does. And that means now my REVL is going to evaluate to an eighth. Cool. So that took care of that one. Here's what's kind of nice about these parameters is you can copy them. And you can see there's no copy feature, but what you do is just double click on it and you just modify it. So now we're going to do my REVR. And when I modify this, it's not actually modifying the original. It's creating a new one. And I'm going to show you that in a second. So let's modify our formulas first. So we'll click on our first formula. We just need to change the L's to R's because we did all these originally for the left side. Now we're going to do it to the right side. So it's just going to be R and R. There we go. And we'll do the last one. And R and R. Okay, now when I click OK, you can see I have my original and I have the right side. So I have them both now. So cool. I have both of those parameters. Now you might ask, well, great. We made those. My appliance frame didn't move at all. What am I doing here? Well, I made those so now I can add to the formula that was creating the width for the appliance frame. So again, we can click on the appliance frame. We can go to the width formula, and you can see now it has this little sigma symbol next to it, which means that it's being calculated off of a formula. So we'll just click on it, and this is the formula that we're using. But now we want to add in that my reveal left and my reveal right parameters. So we're going to leave the original part that we had, and then we're going to minus my underscore reveal left, and then minus my underscore reveal right. And we're going to test it just to make sure it works. And there we go, works. And we're going to see what's going to happen. And you can see this thing got smaller. Cool. But now it's in the wrong X position. So we need to fix the formula for the X position too. So we click on X. It's saying, hey, put this thing right where the face opening is. But we need to add to that the my reveal left. So we're just going to say plus, and then my underscore reveal, or REVL. We'll test that, and sure enough, it's going to evaluate to eighth of an inch, which is what we want. And cool. Now we can see we have the reveals that we want. So now we can test this, and we can change this to an unfinished end. And then we can go back here, and we can see that when we went to an unfinished end, our doors haven't moved yet because those are being controlled by something else, but our face frame has, which is cool. So now if I go back out of here, and actually I'm just going to right click and I'm going to go section, and I'm just going to manually change this left reveal. So I'm going to say properties, reveals, and we're going to put the left reveal, and we're going to put it at 0.5. So all I'm doing is changing the reveal for the parent cabinet, but you're going to see that that is actually going to change the reveal for my appliance frame as well, which is kind of nice. So it's easier to see if I go into the cabinet editor, throw this thing into 3D, and we can see it all lines up, and we got a 1/2 inch reveal on the left there. So cool. We took care of the sizing. And now this frame will size itself according to the reveals. The last thing we need to do is we got to get this fixed shelf to align with this bottom rail. So let's take care of that. So we click on the fixed shelf, and we're going to modify its Y position, or its up-down position. And we're just going to write a little formula. So I'm going to move this out of the way so we can kind of see what we're doing here. We're going to write an equation. So what should our equation be? Well, we know we want to get, basically, we want to get the fixed shelf to the Y position of this appliance frame plus the width of this bottom rail and then minus the thickness of this shelf, because you can see the origin point for this fixed shelf is right here. It's at this bottom edge. So we got to get to here, then up to here, and then back down by the thickness of the shelf. So we're going to have 3 parts to this formula. So this is what's kind of cool. I'm going to show you this. You can refer to the subassembly in this formula. So if we go to the object tree, we expand this, so we can see here's our parent cabinet. And then here is our subassembly. So the name of our subassembly is appliance frame. So that's going to be a key thing to remember here. So let's go back out of here. And we're still clicked on that fixed shelf. And we're going to click on formula, equation. So we're going to say appliance frame dot y. Test that. Oh, we got something wrong. I probably spelled it wrong. So let's try that again. Appliance frame dot y. Test it. There we go. Good old spelling. So that's telling us that's the Y position of the appliance frame. So that's going to get this little green dot right to here, right to the bottom of the frame. But now we got to get it up by the width of that bottom rail. So we need to add to this equation. So we're going to say plus appliance frame dot face dot br dot dx. And again, you can look all this up in the object tree, but that's what we want. So we're going to test that, and now that's going to get us to right here. But now we need to minus the thickness of the shelf. That one's easy. We're just going to say minus and then underscore m semicolon dz. So underscore the material's thickness. That's what underscore m.dz or m semicolon dz means. It's the thickness of this. So we'll click OK, and voila, bang. Now this fixed shelf is in line with this bottom rail. So now we basically have our cabinet. So the last thing, which is usually where most people get confused and where this kind of method starts to throw people off, is they're like, cool, now I want to adjust the rails and stiles for this appliance frame. So normally when you do stuff like that, you would double click, you'd take the cabinet into the cabinet editor, you'd go to section, and you would click on that top rail. You can see I can't click on that top rail. And the reason you can't is because this appliance frame is a subassembly. But no big deal, we can still adjust subassemblies. So we're going to go back out to the room, and we're going to go reports. And then when we click on reports, that's going to show you all the objects that are in your room. So like if you had doors and windows and plants and all kinds of other stuff in here, you're going to see everything, including subassemblies. So we know that this is cabinet number 2, and then that appliance frame that was inside of that is cabinet number 2.1. So if I left click one time to select, right click, edit. There we go. Now it takes that subassembly into the cabinet editor. And so now I'm in section. So I can click on this left style, I can change it to 3. Click on the right style, change it to 3. My top rail is already 3. Let's change the bottom rail. Let's change the bottom rail to 6 so we can see that fixed shelf move a lot. Then we're going to go back out to our job, click on this wall, and double click, and we'll take this thing into the cabinet editor, and we'll throw it in end view. And cool, we can see that that fixed shelf moved itself with that bottom rail. And if we look at our appliance frame, now it's sized according to the adjustments we just made. So there we go. We're done. Now we can save this to our object library, and we have a smart oven cabinet that's fully adjustable. Hope this video helped and you guys learned some things. If you have any questions or want any other information, feel free to reach out to me. You can just leave some comments on the video. Thank you.